Hello, I'm Pastor Dwayne, also known as the Bible Ranger. Today I want to do a little discussion, a little theology, and I've got a friend with me here who's going to help me do a little theology. And yes, okay, this is my friend Bob. Bob, as you can see, is a squirrel.
I'm going to do theology.
Yes, okay. Um, Squirrels are very interesting creatures. They can't die from falling.
They're very resilient.
Yes, uh, and so scientists have observed them fall from as much as 100 feet, and they walk away just fine. Beyond that, the science is a little sketchy as to whether they've actually observed them falling from any higher than that or not.
I hope not. That wouldn't be much fun.
No, I would imagine not. But mathematically speaking, they've determined that a squirrel would have to fall from a height of 4,800 miles.
Miles?
Miles, not feet. Miles.
That's far.
Yes, it is. In order to die. But they wouldn't die from the fall itself or the impact at the end.
That's what gets
Right,
you.
yes, it's usually the impact that gets you. The reason they would die from 4,800 miles is because from that height they would starve to death on their way down. Yes, you are a very hungry little critter.
Hey, if I took a sack lunch,
Yeah,
would that help?
actually, I suppose if you packed a lunch, you'd stand a better chance.
And a spacesuit.
Yes, that would be a must at 4,800 miles. So if you had a little spacesuit and a sack lunch, you'd be okay.
Something so small can make a big difference.
Something that small, that simple, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? Sometimes it is the little things that make a big difference. Sometimes little things have a great big impact.
We see that in the Bible.
Yes, we do see that in the Bible, don't we? Particularly in Matthew chapter 14. Yes, right here. In Matthew chapter 14, we have Jesus feeding the 5,000. And he did that with a sack lunch, essentially. When he asked the disciples what they had, he said 5 loaves and 2 fish, and you find out in the book of John, I believe it is, that was a child that had that. A child's lunch saved the day that day. This child's lunch is what Jesus used to feed 5,000 men plus the women and children.
That's a lot of people for one sack lunch.
Don't overestimate the power of a sack lunch.
Lunch is important.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Lunch is very important. And so, my encouragement to you today is I want to remind you that sometimes it's the little things. You might not think that you're very much. You might not think you have very much. You might not think that anything you have is worthy of God. But we see in Matthew 14, they had 5 loaves, 2 fish. And it says that Jesus, taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, said a blessing. In other words, he gave thanks. He prayed the prayer of thanksgiving over this meal. And then he broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds, and they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces left over.
That's a lot of leftovers.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a lot left over, isn't it? Starting off with not very much to begin with. So to break this all down, God doesn't require much. If you take whatever it is that you have and give it to Jesus, number one, he took what they gave him and he said a blessing. He gave thanks for it. He was thankful for what they gave him, even though it wasn't very much.
Wow, he thanked God.
He thanked God for those, didn't he? And then he used what they gave him, and it turned out that not only was it enough, it was more than enough. And then there were 12 baskets full left over. So not only was it more than enough for that occasion, but there was some for later. So don't ever underestimate the little things. Don't underestimate what you have, what you can contribute. Remember, even a sack lunch can be a powerful thing.
It could save a falling squirrel.
Yes, it can save a squirrel from starving to death from a fall 4,800 miles up, which I would not suggest you try that.
Not going to.
Good. So be encouraged. You don't have to have a lot to impress God. You don't have to have a lot to be used by God. Just give him what you have, and he'll use it in a